SHEDEUR Sanders wasn't supposed to be the disruptor. As a fifth-round rookie, he entered the NFL at the margins of attention, especially on a team grappling with transition. But when Kevin Stefanski was officially let go as head coach, Sanders moved swiftly, finalizing a contract extension unlike anything the league has seen. The deal dismantles norms, nil ownership, revenue sharing, brand autonomy. For an early career player, it's a seismic break from tradition. And it's no coincidence that it came on the heels of Stefanski's departure. The very structure that upheld institutional control had finally loosened, and Sanders struck immediately. This moment marks more than an evolution, it's a rupture. The NFL's branding monopoly, once seen as untouchable, is now under pressure from within. Sanders' deal shows that even mid-tier draft picks can demand and secure equity, not just.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The Browns, by approving these terms, have realigned their identity around a player-led future. Legal teams are now scrambling to assess the ripple effects, and collective bargaining discussions will no longer ignore the rising demand for player-owned rights. Sanders' signature isn't just on a contract, it's on the blueprint of what the NFL may become. The NFL's carefully constructed hierarchy just took a hit, and it came from a fifth-round rookie. Right after the Cleveland Browns officially cut ties with Kevin Stefanski, the team turned around and signed SHEDEUR Sanders to a contract extension that is already shaking up the foundations of how this league has done business for decades. The timing? Highly suspect. The structure of the deal? Unprecedented. The message? Unmistakable. This wasn't just a contract extension, it was a declaration. Sanders didn't wait for the league to recognize his value. He didn't wait for the playbook to open, for his name to climb the depth chart, or for the team to hand him the spotlight. He took the moment. And what he walked away with wasn't just more money. It was full ownership over his name, image, and likeness, plus a percentage of all revenue tied to his personal brand. That's unheard of for a rookie, let alone one taken outside the first 4 rounds. The NFL has always been built around team control. From rookie wage scales to restrictive licensing agreements, everything is designed to keep players inside a system where their value is determined by performance, and their image is managed by the league. But SHEDEUR's deal breaks that model entirely. It gives a rookie full autonomy over how he's marketed, sold, and monetized, no matter what the team or league has planned. And it happened immediately after Stefanski, a coach known for prioritizing structure, hierarchy, and controlled messaging, was removed. The optics couldn't be clearer. Stefanski out, Sanders in. The old guard leaves, and within hours, a new model of player influence steps in to take its place. The Browns didn't waste time appointing a new system-first leader. They gave power, real contractual power, to a rookie quarterback whose brand was already bigger than some team's entire social presence. This wasn't an accident. It was calculated. A power vacuum opened, and Sanders' camp moved quickly to fill it. Without the institutional resistance of a traditionalist coach, the Browns had no internal barrier to this kind of deal. The timing was surgical. And now, the rest of the league is left staring at a contract that threatens to unravel decades of control mechanisms. The NFL thrives on structure. Players are slotted in, managed, and branded according to team needs. But Sanders didn't ask for a spot in that system. He negotiated outside of it. By locking down full nil rights and demanding profit participation, he turned himself into something the NFL isn't used to. A partner, not just a player. This changes everything. It sets a precedent that can't be ignored. For years, the NFL has relied on the idea that rookies come into the league with no leverage. They sign what they're offered and prove themselves before they get a say in anything. That rule just died. Because if SHEDEUR Sanders can walk into a franchise as a fifth-round pick and come out with personal branding rights and a revenue share, what's stopping a first-rounder? What's stopping a Heisman winner? What's stopping every top college prospect who already knows how to monetize a TikTok and launch a merch drop? Nothing. That's the real impact of this deal. It's not about whether Sanders is going to be a great quarterback. It's about the framework he's just introduced. The legal and financial structure now on paper. This isn't a theory, it's a signed contract. And it can be replicated. Agents know it. Teams know it. The NFLPA definitely knows it. And now that this kind of deal exists, players are going to start asking why they don't have it too. And they're not wrong to ask. Because the truth is, Sanders didn't just beat the system. He exposed how outdated it really is. He built his own value outside the league. He created a monetized personal brand through social media, media content, and merchandise before he ever wore an NFL jersey. He proved that athletes today don't need to wait on the league to give them exposure, they generate their own. That's not hype. That's infrastructure. Sanders is a walking case study in the new athlete economy. He doesn't depend on press conferences to push a narrative, he controls his own story. He doesn't need a PR team assigned by the Browns, he has his own media machine. He doesn't rely on team merch deals, he sells directly to his followers on his own terms. And the Browns just signed off on all of it. That move says a lot more about the franchise than it does about SHEDEUR. For a team that spent years stuck in transition, this deal is a signal that they're finally choosing a direction. It's not the traditional team-over-everything model. It's a player-driven, brand-first, influence-forward pivot. They're embracing the fact that in 2026, attention is currency, and SHEDEUR brings it. But with that comes a whole new level of complexity. Because empowering one player to this extent disrupts the internal dynamics of any locker room. Veterans who have given years to the game without ever being granted this kind of flexibility are going to take notice. Rookies coming in behind Sanders will expect the same treatment. And coaches, especially whoever ends up replacing Stefanski, will have to figure out how to lead a team where one player isn't just a quarterback, but also a business partner in the franchise's public identity. That balance is going to be hard to strike. Because if the Browns win, this model gets validated. If Sanders performs and the team succeeds, you'll see other franchises jump at the chance to secure similar talent by offering these same terms. Nil ownership. Brand revenue shares. Off-field control baked into the contract from day one. But if the team stumbles? If the locker room fractures or the branding overshadows the football? That's when the criticism will come. Fast and loud. And yet, that's the risk the Browns took. They looked at the landscape of modern sports and bet on evolution. Not tradition. Not hierarchy. Not wait-your-turn culture. They bet on a player who understands the business of being a brand better than most seasoned pros. And they gave him the legal structure to act on it. Whether or not it works, the move itself has already changed the way people are thinking about rookie contracts. This deal didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of a moment, Stefanski's departure, where power was up for grabs. And Sanders didn't hesitate. He moved quickly, negotiated boldly, and rewrote the terms of engagement before anyone could even process the coach's exit. That speed is important. It's the reason this happened the way it did. It's also why so many franchises are now playing catch-up, trying to figure out how this got through. But the better question is, why wouldn't it? The league knew this kind of deal was coming eventually. The players have been gaining ground, especially with the explosion of nil in college football. What SHEDEUR did was take that momentum and formalize it, at the professional level, in the league that has fought hardest to avoid this exact outcome. So now the NFL faces a choice. Adapt or get left behind. Either embrace the idea that athletes are more than stats, that they're business entities, brands, and stakeholders in the sport they help power, or continue enforcing outdated models that assume control without offering equity. The players are watching. The fans are watching. And with Sanders at the forefront, the new standard is already being written. Let us know what you think. Was this a genius business move or a risky overstep? Are the Browns ahead of the curve or writing checks they can't cash? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like if you're following the future of the NFL one contract at a time, and don't forget to subscribe. Because this story? It's not a headline. It's a turning point. And there's no going back. Let's be real, there's no precedent for this. Not in the NFL. Not at this level. Not with this kind of player. A fifth-round rookie doesn't just roll into the league and renegotiate the terms of power. But that's exactly what SHEDEUR Sanders did, and he did it in the most disruptive, calculated way possible. He didn't just ask for a better deal. He rewrote what rookie deal even means. And now the league is in a position it has never been in before, reacting to a player who is setting the pace before he's even taken over a huddle. Think about what that does to the existing structure. The NFL is built on control. The rookie wage scale exists to keep things predictable. The branding rights funnel revenue through the league. The image of the player is, in most cases, secondary to the image of the team. It's by design. One shield, 32 brands, one message. That model's been wildly successful. And yet, SHEDEUR Sanders walked in and cracked it from the inside. With this extension, he's not just cashing in. He's shifting the balance. His deal gives him full nil ownership and a share of any revenue connected to his brand. Terms that are wildly uncommon, let alone for a player who wasn't even a top pick. That alone would be historic. But the when matters just as much as the what. Because this all happened in the hours following Kevin Stefanski's firing. The coach who symbolized structure, traditional football culture, and a top-down approach was out. And in that leadership vacuum, Sanders and his camp moved fast, capitalizing on a moment where the usual institutional guardrails weren't there to block a move like this. That's what makes this feel so intentional. It wasn't random. It wasn't reactionary. This was a strategic play by a player who understands the game beyond the scoreboard. He's not playing checkers. He's not even playing chess. He's playing media, branding, and revenue strategy in a league that's still pretending players don't know how to read the rulebook. And the Browns? They let him do it. This is a franchise that's been desperate for a new identity. They've been in and out of rebuilds, plagued by inconsistency, caught in cycles of dysfunction. For years, the Browns were defined by instability. Now they've made a different kind of bet. Not on the next system QB. Not on the next coaching savior. On a player who brings attention, engagement, and digital gravity before he's proven anything on the field. That's bold. But it's also risky. Because what happens if SHEDEUR struggles? What happens if the team doesn't win? What happens when the off-field brand is outpacing the on-field product? The NFL loves winners, but it hates distractions. And if this dynamic becomes too much to manage internally, the same people celebrating this deal now will be the first ones turning on it. The locker room implications are already being talked about. How do you keep a team unified when one player is operating with a completely different level of influence? Not just popularity, contractual power. Sanders doesn't just have the spotlight. He's got a portion of the profits too. And when money's involved, real money, dynamics shift. Fast. Coaches will have to lead differently. Front offices will have to think differently. And other players? They're going to start asking, why not me? This is where the ripple effect really starts to hit. Because this isn't just a contract, it's a blueprint. Agents across the league are analyzing every clause. Young athletes entering the draft already have nil portfolios. And now they've seen that even without being a top pick, you can still negotiate terms that used to be unthinkable. The Browns just showed their hand. And now other teams are either going to evolve, or be forced to. The NFLPA is surely watching too. For years, they've tried to expand players' rights in CBA negotiations. Now they've got a live example to point to. They don't have to argue that players deserve control over their likeness. They can just say, look what SHEDEUR did. So here's where the tension builds. Will this start a player-led movement toward autonomy and equity? Or will the league quietly push back, tightening rules, controlling language, closing loopholes, to reassert its authority? Because make no mistake, the NFL doesn't like losing control. And this deal hands it over in a way they weren't prepared for. The stakes are huge. Not just for SHEDEUR, not just for Cleveland, but for the structure of the league itself. This kind of power shift doesn't happen often. But when it does, it rewrites the map. And SHEDEUR isn't backing into it. He's leaning in. He's been building toward this for years. Cultivating a personal brand, learning the media space, surrounding himself with people who know how to monetize attention. By the time he got to the NFL, he wasn't just a prospect. He was a product. And now he owns that product. That's the piece that keeps getting overlooked. This deal isn't just about permission, it's about ownership. He doesn't need approval to monetize his brand. He doesn't need to wait for a team campaign or a league sponsorship. He can run his own, build his own, sell his own. That's dangerous for a league that profits off players without always cutting them in. But it's liberating for the next generation of athletes who see sports not as a career, but as a platform. Because let's be honest, this generation gets it. They've grown up watching athletes become moguls. They understand media. They understand audience building. They're not just here to play, they're here to scale. And SHEDEUR just proved that if you're prepared, you can scale on day one. Now we're going to see who follows the lead. Some teams will panic and try to shut this down. Others will see the writing on the wall and adjust. But one thing's for sure, we're not going back to how things used to be. The game has changed. This isn't about legacy deals for all-time greats. This is about rookies coming in with leverage. About teams recognizing that cultural capital is athletic capital. About understanding that fans don't just follow wins, they follow people. And those people are building their own ecosystems now. The Browns might have stumbled into this moment out of desperation. Or maybe they finally understood what it would take to stop being irrelevant. Either way, they let it happen. They bet on SHEDEUR Sanders, not just as a player but as a brand. And now the league has to deal with the consequences. Because this contract isn't going to fade into the background. It's going to be the center of every conversation about rookie rights, nil expansion, and what it means to be a modern pro. So whether you're on board or not, whether you think this is smart or risky, you can't deny what's happening. The old rules? They just got rewritten. And now that the deal is done, the league has no choice but to live with it. The SHEDEUR-Sanders extension isn't just a one-time story, it's a live wire running straight through the heart of the NFL's long-standing power dynamics. This contract didn't just break the mold, it shattered it, swept up the pieces, and handed them back to the player who made the mess in the first place. And while some execs are trying to downplay it, the panic behind closed doors is very real. Because here's what's coming next. Every young quarterback with a brand behind him, every player with a social media presence, every athlete walking into the draft with a fanbase already in place, they're going to want in on this model. They're going to bring SHEDEUR's name to the negotiation table. They're going to ask why he got those rights, why he got that revenue share, and why they shouldn't demand the same. And teams? They're going to have to start choosing. Do you risk losing top-tier talent by holding on to outdated structures? Or do you open the door to player-led branding deals that will require entirely new infrastructure to manage? Let's not pretend like this is a smooth transition. The NFL is not designed for this kind of athlete empowerment. The league's revenue systems, media strategy, and licensing models are built around centralized control, where the league gets paid first and the players fit into that system second. SHEDEUR just flipped that script. He's not waiting for the league to filter his value through jersey sales or national broadcasts. He's already monetizing it directly. His image is his. His content is his. His profits, his partnerships, his platform, his. And for the first time, a franchise has agreed that that's okay. The Cleveland Browns, intentionally or not, have put themselves on the front line of a battle the NFL has been trying to delay. A battle between the old school where the team identity comes first and the new school where players are no longer waiting to be marketed, they're marketing themselves and now getting paid to do it. It's disruptive. It's complicated. And it's absolutely inevitable. Because this isn't just about one player wanting more attention. It's about a new generation of athletes who grew up understanding digital platforms, who understand what their presence is worth, and who aren't interested in giving that value away for free. And the moment one team gives in, just once, that's all it takes. Now the Browns have to live in that reality too. Because while SHEDEUR's contract gives him groundbreaking rights, it also changes the internal ecosystem of the team. How do you manage locker room expectations when one player holds this kind of autonomy? It's not just about NO. It's about identity. And identity in sports has always been collective. Team first. One voice. One mission. But what happens when one player's voice is louder than the organization's? That's the tension the Browns just invited into their building. And sure, it could work. It could become the foundation of a modern, forward-thinking franchise that embraces player-first dynamics and thrives in the social era. Or it could implode. It could fracture the locker room. It could spark resentment. It could make life harder for every coach, every GM, every teammate trying to operate within a traditional system while one guy plays by a different set of rules. But that's the gamble. And it's a gamble that comes with real stakes, not just for Cleveland but for the entire league. Because if SHEDEUR succeeds, on the field and off, he becomes proof of concept. He becomes the poster child for a different kind of NFL star. One who doesn't just perform but profits. One who doesn't just play but owns. That's terrifying for a league that spent so long keeping that ownership in-house. And that's exactly why this matters so much. The NFL has always been the most rigid of the major sports leagues. While the NBA embraced player mobility and off-court identity, the NFL has leaned heavily on tradition, control, and institutional structure. But this deal, this one contract, may force the league to confront something it's been trying to hold off for years. Players want more. And now they know they can get it. The Browns' willingness to accept SHEDEUR's terms sends a loud signal to every other franchise. Adapt or fall behind. Players aren't waiting until they're veterans anymore. They're coming in prepared, legally, financially, and digitally. They know their value before they ever suit up. And now they know there's at least one team willing to honor that. The Browns didn't just bet on SHEDEUR's arm, they bet on his influence. And if that bet pays off, they'll look like visionaries. But if it doesn't, they'll be remembered as the franchise that blew open a system and couldn't handle what came next. There's no middle ground anymore. Because SHEDEUR's deal isn't just a contract. It's a marker in time. It tells us where the league has been. It tells us what the next generation is demanding. And it forces every front office, every coach, every agent, and every league executive to answer one simple question. Are you ready for a league where players walk in with power? Because SHEDEUR didn't ask for permission. He took it. Here's what nobody in the league office wants to say out loud. This wasn't just about SHEDEUR-Sanders being bold. This was about the NFL finally meeting a player who knew exactly how the game was played, off the field. And for the first time the player didn't blink. That's what's got people shook. For years the NFL has relied on rookies being green, grateful to be drafted, eager to prove themselves, easy to manage. Teams bank on the idea that new players will follow the script. Keep your head down, stay humble, don't ask too many questions. You'll get your shot, if you're lucky, if you perform, if the coaches like you. But SHEDEUR came in with a different energy. Because he already knew who he was before the NFL ever called his name. He didn't need the league to tell him he was marketable. He didn't need the team to build his brand. He built it himself, through social media, through merch, through digital content, through total control of his image. He walked into the NFL as a fully formed brand with leverage, and he used it. And that's what's made this moment feel so dangerous to the league. Because now, teams are being forced to admit that influence is no longer something they can contain. Players are no longer just pieces on the board, they're players with boards of their own. Businesses, audiences, platforms. And now, thanks to this contract, there's paperwork to match it. That's the line that's been crossed. This wasn't some handshake agreement, or a flashy press release with no teeth. This was legal language. This was revenue sharing. This was nil control, baked into the deal, signed, sealed, and made public. Which means it's no longer hypothetical. It's precedent. And if you're a team that doesn't like it, too bad. Because every agent worth their commission is taking this contract into the next rookie meeting and asking, why not us? And the second another team says yes, the floodgates are open. The Browns may not have realized what they were unlocking, but they unlocked it anyway. And now they have to build a locker room, a coaching staff, and a front office that can function inside that new reality. That's going to take more than just talent evaluation. It's going to take a complete rethinking of how teams manage power, equity, and voice. It's going to take leadership that understands influence is not a distraction, it's part of the business model now. SHEDEUR Sanders proved that by showing up with a brand that was already monetized and asking to be treated accordingly. The Browns said yes, and the league took a step into a future it was hoping to delay. Too late. This isn't a phase. It's not a fluke. It's a shift. And SHEDEUR's contract will be remembered as the spark. So let's hear what you think. Did the Browns just future-proof their franchise or lose control before the season even started? Should this be the model going forward, or should teams push back before it spreads? Drop your take in the comments, hit that like if you're here for the business of football finally getting interesting, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because this isn't just a story. It's a warning shot. And more are coming.